If you watch YouTube, lots of videos about investing and strategies for investing are all focused on people that are in their 20s, maybe 30s. Get early, get in, stick it out for a long time and let the compounding work for you. But what if, like me, you didn't start investing until you're nearly 40 or after 40? Well, in today's video, we're going to have a look at what you can do to make sure you don't fall behind. What I'll do is I'll share my plan moving forward, and it might not fit everybody, but I think it's a fairly safe plan that has not guaranteed, but pretty good chances of getting to a point where you can actually retire comfortably. We're going to use smaller numbers because most people aren't living off millions every month. We're going to look at realistic sort of levels based on the average income in the UK to make sure that this is actually achievable. And we'll also assume that you're working off one salary alone. So if you're working on two, this might be a little bit easier for you. Before we look at what you actually need to get to in retirement, we need to know where you are right now. And that's really important because if you've got a mountain of debt that you need to clear off, we've got to sort that out before we can worry about anything in the future, because at the moment, you're actually spending money on interest rather than earning it. So what I want you to do is have a look at all of your assets. So that's your savings, properties, investments, if you've got any, which a lot of people don't. Then we need you to have a look at all of your debts. That includes your mortgage, student loans, any car payments, etc. What we need to do is work out what your net asset position is. So that is your assets minus your liabilities. What this does is just give you an idea of where you are in life, and you actually might be surprised that you're not that far behind. I'll put on now the average net worth for people at 40 in the UK, and it's probably a lot lower than you thought, and that's taking into account there's a whole lot of millionaires that skew the graph slightly upwards. So if you're anywhere near that, you're not doing too badly. If you're below it, don't worry, it's not too late and we'll get to it. If you're above it, obviously, well done. Now you know what you've got. What you want to work out next is what your retirement number is. The way I like to think of this is, what do I need on a monthly basis in order to cover all my bills, live comfortably, have some fun money, and be able to save a little bit for holidays, etc. Let's say, for example, I want $3,000 a month, which is broadly speaking what the average income in the UK is at the moment gross. So that's 36,000 a year. In order to get to your number, what you need to do is times that annual number by 25. 36,000 times by 25 is 900,000. So it's nearly $1 million. That seems like an awful lot of money. Once we go through the next steps, what you'll see is that by the time you're 65, starting at 40, that might be achievable. Obviously, if your number is a little less than that, this is based on real terms figures as opposed to gross figures. So this will be money that you can actually spend when you're older. It will be worth the equivalent of what it is today. The next thing you want to do is actually identify what your goals are. So what your retirement age is, because if your retirement age is 45, you've only got 5 years to do that in. That might be challenging. If you do want to retire earlier than that, you may need to adjust your expectations of where you can actually get to, because there is only so much you can do unless you get incredibly lucky. Don't lose hope if your number is much higher than that, because we're going to go through things to try and maximize what you're going to get. Before you do anything else in terms of saving money, investing, looking at stocks, what you need to do is actually go through what you're spending and make sure that you actually reduce your costs and your future costs. For example, we used to live in an expensive area. We had an expensive house. We actually moved out of that area so that we had more disposable income, cheaper house, and we were actually able to, with the equity we'd built in the other house, purchase a house outright. So if you're living in an expensive area, that's something you can easily do, is move to a cheaper area if your job allows. Another thing I did a couple of years ago was look through all my direct debits, all my recurring bills, and I was amazed how much money was just going out for things we didn't use anymore. Our Sky bill had gone up an insane amount. There was a whole load of subscriptions that we had, all of which I didn't know, didn't use, so we cancelled all of those. And in total, I think I saved nearly £300 a month. So that's $3,600 a year that we're saving. And we're still living the way we want to live. Like I always say, don't cut out on the things you love, but save on the things that you don't love. Then, if you have any debt, make sure you prioritize paying off your high interest debt first. So anything over 5%, I would say prioritize that before you start any investing, because that 5% is eating into your wealth every single month. And once you've paid those up, that frees up the cash flow that you've got that you were paying off the debt, and then allows you to actually invest that money instead. Rather than losing money, you start gaining it. My preferred method of paying off debt is called the snowball method. This is made famous by Dave Ramsey and his team, who are very famously anti-debt.
So I quit telling people to get out of debt, paying off the highest interest rate first. I started teaching people what we started calling the debt snowball. You list your debts smallest to largest. You pay minimum payments on everything but the little one. You attack the little one with a vengeance. You stop all investing temporarily and completely focus all your emotional, spiritual, financial, relational energy on that smallest debt. Everything goes on that. When that one's gone, you take the payment that used to be there and any other money we can squeeze out of our budget and we throw it at number 2. And when that one's gone, then we take the payments from 1 and 2. The snowball rolls over again, it picks up more snow, and you attack number 3.
It might sound counterintuitive not paying off the most expensive debt, but in reality, managing money is more about your behaviors than it is the maths behind it all. If you can see you've cleared off one loan, then another, all in a row because you roll them on, you snowball that money, it will give you that mental boost, and that's what you need to keep going. Then, once you've done that, what you need to do is come up with a plan. So you've reduced your outgoings, then you need to figure out what you want to actually do with the money. We have a rough budget which you need to stick to. Yes, you can have the odd day where you go over, but it's something that you need to make sure you budget for. This isn't anything that's set in stone. It's not something that you need to worry about if one month you're a little over on some stuff and others you aren't, but the stricter you can be with yourself, the better. Make sure as well, in the budget, you build in some fun money. So what we like to do, and what I personally use, is 50% of our income, and this is net income, goes towards the day-to-day household bills. Then we use 25 to 30% on fun money, which leaves another 20% to go into investings and savings. Initially, all of your savings and investments should go into an emergency fund. That emergency fund should be there to cover 3 to 6 months worth of your total costs. So that is, let's say if you spend $2,000 a month, we would recommend building at least a £6,000 buffer. And that allows you to not worry about things if things go wrong. And that could take quite a long time. If your savings and investments would be about $400 a month, it would take just under a year and a half to build up that emergency pot. That might seem a long time, but we're going to do some other strategies as well to try and increase your income at the same time. With the budget as well, it's important to make sure that you automate everything. There's a really good book called The Richest Man in Babylon, and he always says, pay yourself first. And that means that you actually take the money for what you want to do first before you pay anyone else. So your savings, your investments, your fund money, that all comes out first. That way, you know you're sticking to it. I automate everything on our account. So we've got separate accounts for our fund money. We also have an account for where our savings go to every month. I don't even look at it. It does it automatically. And all I do every now and then is I pop back on there and have a look, and the numbers hopefully have gone up. Then when you start these budgets and everything, it's best to review them regularly as well, because a lot of the time you might be spending on things, you forget things in the budget. So leave it about 6 months or so of checking on it. Make sure if you are doing this with a partner that they're in on the plan. You both need to be on the same plan in order to make this work, because if one of you is a spender, one of you is a saver, it's going to cause some issues. What you want to do is you want to start maximizing your savings. So we do want you to save aggressively, especially if you haven't started early. Probably the best place to start filling up, as I mentioned, is your ISA. So what ISA do you take? This all depends on your risk profile. But if you want to maximize your potential earnings, the best option is to take out a stocks and shares ISA. Make sure you look into the different platform providers, but I use Trading 212. It's really easy. It's got an app. It's nice and easy to access. It's nice and easy to purchase things. You can make monthly deposits. Does everything automatically for you. This isn't sponsored, by the way. You can look at investing into single stocks, ETFs, mutual funds are on there. I invest in ETFs. They're basically pots of all different types of single stocks. So the one that I put most of the money in is the S&P 500. And historically, that's done incredibly well. Yes, it goes up and down, but over the long run, it's consistently returned around about 10 to 12%, give or take. So you invest in that. Make sure you do it regularly. Once you've maximized that, so you're putting away your 20 to 30% savings into that every month of your net income. What if that isn't enough? So what we'll do is we will have a look at what it might look like, assuming we're able to invest, let's say, £500 a month. That is a lot of money. If you can do what that would look like over varying time frames in real terms. So we start with 0. I think that's a safe assumption for most people. And then we want to invest for 25 years. So we've got that, and we will invest monthly £500 at the end of every month. And I think to make this sort of fair, what we should probably do is increase that with the average rate of inflation so that you can keep up on that basis. So you increase this 500 every year by 3%, which we've got down here. So as you'll see, starting from 0 for 25 years for 500, that would get you 500,000 based on 7%. We use the 7% because that's the real return rate of the S&P 500. So what real term means is once you've taken inflation into account already. This is the spending power you will have at the time. Interest earned of 300,000 based on your additional deposits of 200,000. If you want to have a look what this would look like in gross terms, round about 10%, you'd have about 800,000 sitting in your account. But what that 7% means is it will be worth the equivalent of the 500,000 odd. So what you can do when you've got the gross figure in there, you can then work out the 4% rule of that. That works out to be about 33,480. So if we're working on the 532 times the 4%, that will get you real terms or safe withdrawal income of around about 21,000 and a little bit. And what I mean by safe income is that income you'll be allowed to withdraw on average annually without actually eating into your gross savings. So by the time you're likely to die, you will still have money left over and you won't have run out. Let's say you wanted to retire a little bit earlier, and you can see the difference this makes. So if we wanted to retire in 15 years, you would only end up with 189,000. So you see the extra 10 years adds a massive amount because that's when the compounding interest really starts to kick in. So it's not impossible if you're already, let's say, 50 and you want to retire at 65. You just might have to have a look at maybe earning a little bit more. By the time you are 40 and 50, hopefully you're in your peak earning years. So you might be able to, if you're lucky, invest a little bit more than 500 a month. So let's see, on the assumption you can invest £1,000 a month. That would then get you 378,000, and that's more like it. You can actually use that money. So on that sort of basis, 370,000 times by 4%, you're looking at about 1,500. And by the time you get to retirement age, you will also have the state pension, hopefully, if that still exists. You hopefully will have paid off your mortgage as well, so you won't need that payment money coming out. So between the two, you'll have a couple of grand every single month just from your investments, and that's starting at 50. So if we had started that exact same thing and you could afford to put in £1,000 50,000 from the age of 40, starting with zero again, you'd have over £1 million, and then you'd be able to pull out that money incredibly comfortably. And this is without anything else. So that is why trying to increase what you can invest as much as you can is really important. And I think one easy way to do that is utilize the skills that you have to start a side hustle if you want. I did that, started a little bit of sort of advice on the side, and that turned into a business. It's actually generating as much as my normal salary was, and more so. So it all depends on what you want to do. If you've got any skills, if you like internet, you could do video editing, you could do all sorts of stuff if you're good at that. You could start a YouTube channel on the side. That probably will take a long time to start generating some money. If it goes well and it's something you enjoy, it's worth trying. But have a think of what your skills are and utilize those to try and make more money so you can invest that. I wouldn't worry if you're over 40 or even over 50. Things can still go fine for you. But what you've got to do is make sure you look at the numbers you've got, be realistic with what you are expecting out of life, and make sure you just keep down your costs. Don't go into debt. There is definitely light at the end of the tunnel. So if, like me, you started late, it's not the end of the world. There's hope. Keep investing, keep saving, and you'll get there. Any comments that you'd like to add, please do leave a note below. Anything that you think I've missed, let me know. We can cover in another video. And thanks so much for watching.